been sitting here for a year or so. This is it. It's a 1987 Fiero GT, the V6 in an auto. We're gonna get this loaded up on the trailer and take it back to the shop and see if we can't get this thing up and running. Fiero GT on the trailer. Gonna take it home, see if we can't get it running good, and put it back on the street for a while, and then decide whether or not we're gonna V8 swap this. Oh, hello. Welcome to New Vision Garage. Today we're gonna start a new series centered around this 1987 Fiero, and it's the GT flavor. Been sitting in his driveway, had some engine issues. Instead of fixing it, he just let it sit. Prior to that, it sat in another gentleman's garage for the better part of 20 years, and the only time they drove it was on weekends or just around the block, and then put it back in the shop. It's not in bad shape. I think it has 65,000 miles on the clock. This has the V6 2.8 liter and a TH125 3-speed auto. So it's a real powerhouse at 135 horsepower, I believe 165 foot-pounds of torque. So it's a beast. I mean, it's a full-out race car. My plans with this are to get it running good, get it tuned up. I think we need to go through the brakes, make sure the AC is charged and everything on this car works, and then probably just put it back on Marketplace and sell it. Maybe drive it for a little while, but mostly I think I'm just going to get rid of it. Cool little car. This is my second one. First one I had was a 1986 SE model with the same motor, same transmission. And it was a pretty decent little car, really rusty. This one doesn't have any of the typical rust back in the quarters or the cradle bolts. There's no rust in it there. Interesting thing about these Fieros, they were made from 84 to 88. 84 to 87, most of the parts on them are interchangeable. The only one that was different was the 88. Front end on this is actually a Chevette front end, if you all old enough to remember those. I believe these cars weigh around 24 to 2,700 pounds. They are all composite, and all these composite pieces pop off the inner frame. So let me grab the camera and we'll do a little walk around here, and I'll show you the inside and the motor and all that kind of good stuff. We'll dive right in. If you're not familiar with them, this is a rear engine vehicle. I don't know if you consider this a mid-engine. To me, it's right over the rear axle. Maybe this is considered a mid-engine, but it has this nice trunk space back here that you can put pretty much nothing in. And there is the powerhouse, the 2.8 V6, which is basically the same V6 I believe they put in the Camaro of that year. Maybe the Camaro 2.8 had aluminum heads. This one does not. 15-inch wheels. We'll look right here in the inside. It's pretty clean. Little wear on the bolster there, but that's pretty normal for these cars. But the seats are, you need a little bit of a bath, but they're pretty clean. They're not tore up. Carpet looks like it could use a little cleaning. The dash is in good shape, and the center console's in good shape. The stereo works. Headliner's in good shape. Let's see if we can look in here and see that odometer. Yeah, she says 65,490. Whoa, horn works too. Right now it's not running the best. Let's see if we can pop the hood here. I'll show you what the underneath looks like. Oh, where are you? Oh, there it is. Oh, yeah, that's it. Yeah, so this hood opens up towards the front. Those are pop-up headlights. I noticed the passenger side is not working. There are nylon gears inside there, and I think they strip. Probably have to rebuild that one. You know, it needs a lot of cleaning, a lot of leaves and crap. As you can see, there's the power brake booster and probably the original spare. There's the parts for the AC, and pretty complete car. It even has the lug wrench, and if I've seen it, I think the jack's in here too. Or maybe the jack's in the rear trunk. But I'm pretty sure I've seen it. Anyways, the radiator sits up on front of these. And if you come back here and look at the motor, you'll see another, looks like radiator cap. And under that is a thermostat. From my last one, my 86, when you fill these, take this one off, take the front cap off, jack the front of the car up, not real high, but enough, and fill it that way so you get all the air bubbles out of it. I did get a little ahead of this video and took the rear hatch off and the air intake tube. You see the hatch is sitting over there, and believe it or not, if you're taking yours off, which it makes it a ton easier to work on the engine, they are kind of heavy. So use 2 people, or you could break that back window out. You're going to have to buy it from a parts house or find another Fiero with a good back window in it for a parts car or what have you. But these aren't in the junkyards. Well, at least not around here in the Midwest they're not. Maybe down south or out east or what have you. They're a pretty cool little car. I think these are right around $9,000 to $13,000 when they came out. This video series could have gone a whole different direction. We could have been pulling this motor out. And if I was going to actually pull the motor out, this was actually my initial plan. Yep, that's a 6-liter. But after looking into it a little bit on the Archie site and a few others, the price on the adapter kits and all the brackets and everything you need has gone up considerably. And the reality here is, if you spend all that money on a car such as this, you really have to keep it, because you're probably never going to get your money back out of it. If you spend $10,000 to buy a kit to put a V8 in these and also build the transmission to hold it, that's a lot of money to put into these cars. And if you're like myself and many others of you, we get bored with stuff and we want to sell it and buy something different, start a new project. I just don't think this one's going to work out for me as far as doing that to it. It's a cool idea. If I could find one of these that someone's already done a V8 swap, but maybe it's rusty or it's had a wreck from the front end or something. If I could get the parts cheap, I would probably still do it. This is a nice example of an 87. Pretty good shape. I think once you get it all running and I buff the paint out, I think it's going to look really nice. Clean the interior up, and it'll make somebody a good daily driver, or take it to the car shows. Most states now, this thing will probably qualify for an antique plate. Pull this intake off because it has an oil leak coming from somewhere underneath that top intake, and these motors are also known for that, leaking from the valve covers, leaking from the PCV, and also probably, I'm not sure if it's just leaking from the front and rear China walls or what. This is worth maybe taking the intake off, sealing everything up. While we have the part, I can get the plugs back in easier and then just do a full tune-up. Now, another interesting thing on this, if you look, I don't know if you can see it, had no O2 sensor. The O2 sensor was missing. So here's the plugs minus one that I dropped somewhere down the back of the engine. As you can see, they're pretty rusty. I believe these are the original plugs. I don't think they were ever changed. And it's looking like it was running pretty rich too. But at any rate, this is all that was left of the O2 sensor. See, it basically rotted off and then popped the porcelain part of the O2 sensor out. I think it had been driven around that way quite a while in open loop. I'm still going to have to find the wire. There is a wire hanging down in front of the muffler. I think that might be the wire that goes to it. I think it basically just popped the O2 sensor off. It dangled down, hit the ground, took off. the prior owner and the owner before, the original owner, probably didn't even know. Other than they thought, you know, probably had a good exhaust leak. I'm sure you heard that. It would run, I'm sure. It would probably run really pig rich and probably idle really crazy with no O2 sensor in there to close the loop and start reading. I'm sure it didn't run great. Now I did pull the dipstick on this. It smells like raw gas. And like I said, it's been at least sitting for 2 years with gas in it, or somewhat fresh gas in it. I mean, that oil, I could probably drain it out, strain it, and put it right in the gas tank, and it would burn fine. We'll set the tripod up here, and we'll start taking this intake off and see what we find. It should be fun. Oh, other things with the other first steps. This wire attaches to the hood, so you make sure you take that off. And over here, there's a harness. Where's it at? Where'd it go? Yeah, is that it? Oh, here it is. There is a plug-in here that, if you see it down here, the hood plugs into that. So make sure you disconnect that before you try yanking the hood off of it. So all I did, it's two 10mm bolts on each side, and it just slides right out. You can see here, this is what was left inside the exhaust pipe for the O2, and this is what a new one looks like. All this was deleted, and it should, with a tune-up and no oil leaks, fresh fuel filter, fresh this, fresh that. I'm thinking it's probably going to run pretty good. A lot better than without this. 10mm 12 points on these upper intake. Oh boy, that's a lot of vacuum hoses. Oh well, let's dig in. The map sensor here, we'll probably unplug that. Let me find a 10mm 12 point. Hope I have them. Voila. Yeah. You know, you go on Marketplace and find quite a few of these on Marketplace in various states of repair, or even some really nice ones that probably don't need a whole lot. You know, they make body kits for these, and you can make them look like a little Ferrari. And wow, that's really in there. I better get a regular wrench on that. I'll be breaking the old Milwaukee. I'm not sure what type of mileage they claim these get. I'm guessing it's probably in the mid-20s. Like that. That don't feel great. That feels like it could break. Well, maybe not. I did make a manual version of this. I'm not exactly sure what the rated miles per gallon on the manuals were. I believe they were a 4-speed or a 5-speed, or maybe both. Now these do have they are obviously a transaxle style transmission, and I think there's several different. If you're going to do a swap on them, I think you can run 4T60 or 65. The 4T80, I've seen someone on the interwebs that did a 4T80 swap on theirs, and it looked like it was quite a bit of work to get it in there. That's a fairly large unit. But if I was going to do this one and put an LS in it with even 600 horsepower, I don't think I'd want to put anything in there but the bare minimum of 4T65 that's been gone through and built. Because I'm pretty sure you just destroy these TH125s or the Getrag or whatever the other ones are. They claim that you can put in here. Don't know that I would trust it. Well, let's see. Oh boy. That's an 8mm for the fuel rail there. Let's see if we can break this one or. Wow, that's on there. Trying not to break anything. We'll see. Oh, I think it just broke. Yep, it did. Well, guess we'll have to drill that one out and tap it. Not the end of the world. I bet I don't put a metric bolt back in it. I almost guarantee I won't. One, I don't have a bunch of metric bolts laying around. Not the end of the world. All right. I think we'll get the rest of these out of here with this. Oop, there goes the. What I do with the adapter? Ah, nuts. I know I just had it. Where'd I set it? Oh, there it is. Try to find an 8 here for the fuel rail, and then it looks like the throttle body is a Torx, maybe like around a T45. Yeah, and then we'll have to pull the distributor cap, and we'll probably get rid of this thing right here. I don't know if you can see it, but these are EGR goes into the bottom of this intake, and typically they leak, so we might have to just eliminate on that one. Let's see if I can find an 8mm. 12 point. There we go. See if we can break this one. These were pretty popular back when I was in high school. You know, in '87 it was Camaros, and not many people had, at least where I was from, where I grew up, not too many people had, you know, the Fox body Mustangs. A lot of kids I went to school with had the V6 Camaros. Maybe one or two had V8s in them, but I think most of them were V6s. What else was popular back then? Let's see. Ford Escorts, Rangers, a few of these running around. Some of the rich kids had TAs and Z28s, and I think I had one buddy that had a Grand National. It was pretty cool. A lot of old muscle cars, and I think most of them were their parents' cars, but they let them drive them. All right, let me find a Torx. So what were some of the cool cars when you went to school, in high school, let's say? Not grade school, but I think I can remember K cars, Luminas, Berettas. Yeah, all those cars were popular back in the late 80s, early 90s. Those were all what everybody wanted to drive. And we didn't have a lot of, well, we did. There was some that, you know, my senior year of high school, I had a Nissan Datsun 200SX. So it was an inline 4-cylinder with 8 spark plugs. The manual transmission. That was a cool car. That was really kind of before the tuner age or what have you. You know, it was cool to have it, but they didn't have the following they have nowadays. Well, that wasn't the right size. Maybe it's this one. Maybe it's a T40. And I also had a Volkswagen Bug Beetle 70. It was actually a Super Beetle, I think. It was a pretty cool car. And of course, growing up in the Midwest, you probably had an old pickup. I did. I had a 72 Ford F-250 Camper Special with so much rear spring that it didn't matter what you put in the back, it wouldn't budge the suspension. It had snow tires on it when I bought it for the rear. And they had split rims on it. None of the local tire shops wanted to really deal with that, so pretty much ran it around bald tires. But fun truck, 360 C6. I don't know, some really tall gears in the back, probably 410s or something like that. And what a cool truck those were. Still are. I'd love to have another one. Now parts for these seem to be pretty much available, I guess. I bought all new brake hoses and brake pads and caliper pins and all the tune-up stuff from my local O'Reilly's. They didn't have them in the back, but it only took them a day to get them in from their warehouse or hub or whatever they use. And you know, they weren't terribly expensive. There's a few niche websites, Pelox maybe, House of Fiero, Archie's if you're looking to swap one of these. So there's some parts out there, and eBay's probably loaded with them. Like that might have been where I got the replacement motor or gear for the headlight. I wouldn't be afraid to buy one, even if it's got a lot of little things that need to be repaired. I think you can still get a hold of quite a bit of parts for these. But they made a formula version of this. I've never seen one myself, I don't think. That one had a 3100 V6 instead of the 2.8. So that probably was pretty neat. They did make a concept. I think Smokey Unick was involved with it, if you've ever heard of him. And he made a turbo version, or maybe it was the 4-cylinder even. Anyways, it made some stupid horsepower, like 400 horse. From what I'm reading, I don't know, I'd never seen it. Apparently there's one at Don Garlett's museum down in Florida. But it was like 400 horse, I don't know what the torque was, but 400 horsepower in this factory, I'm sure the Corvette people had a fit. Power to weight ratio, this with 400 horsepower, let's say 400 foot-pounds of torque, would have been insane for the day because of the implications to their actual muscle car lines or their modern day, you know, at that time, the Corvette, the Z28, whatever else. Buick did their own thing at the Grand National, and so they got away with a little bit more, but this thing would have been a beast with 400 horsepower from the factory. Wow, she's stuck. Let's see. I have to get these clips off to pull these cables out of this throttle body. One thing with these too, the only place you have to put tools and bolts is along this back lip. Hate it when they make a car with not enough places to put your tools. Bolts, come on. You know we're gonna have to work on them. But I'm thinking if you could pick one of these up in running condition, it doesn't have a lot wrong with it, for $3,000 to $4,000. Spend $1,000, go through it. Maybe not even $1,000, maybe cheaper than that. But if you're gonna put new tires on it and tune it all up, fix all the little things that are wrong with it, you might be close to $1,000 nowadays. But I think it would last quite a while. My 86 was a great little car. Actually, even drove it in the winter with studded snow tires, and it did very well. And that one, I don't know that I had a lot of money into fixing. I had a lot of time into pulling the motor out, going through everything, putting the motor back in. But it wasn't, I don't think I had a lot of money into it. And I bought that car for $300, I think. Well, maybe we just use a screwdriver and we open a slot in it. And then use a pair of channel locks when we put it back on to squeeze it. I don't know if that's the right. That's the way I'm about to do it. Because I'm tired of dinking with it. Yeah, there we go. That might be the main. On the very back of the intake here, there is a big, huge, well, it's not huge, but maybe 3/4 inch vacuum hose. I believe maybe that is the one that goes to the brake booster up front. Careful with that. Yeah, it does. It goes into the rear firewall back here. Carefully remove those hoses and whatnot. On these older cars, you know, if you're careful with these hoses, you can get them off without ruining them all. Because I don't know the availability on parts like that. But if you've had one that's 87, you might end up just putting a bunch of different size heater hoses on it if you break all these vacuum hoses. Try to be careful with them. These come in real handy, they're real nice. Just pull them back and forth, and usually the hoses pop right off. Or not. What the devil? There it goes. I just told you to be real careful. Here I go cranking on it. There it goes. Come on. Probably never been off there since the car was new. There we are. Yeah, so this is the one I'm speaking of. This, I suppose it could be a heater hose. I don't know. Maybe. No, there's no fluid in it. It's got to be a vacuum line. Again, and there's another big vacuum line right here behind the map sensor. Get that clamp off there. Now I'm sure on the, probably right here on YouTube, there's probably someone that is very detailed, more than I am, on, you know, naming out the parts and everything that are taken off. Yeah. Where's the fun in that? Just do it. if you mess up, you'll know not to do that again. Be interesting to find where the air leak was on this, and maybe it was just from not having the O2 sensor in there and then having a leak in the exhaust is the reason. It probably was such an erratic idle when I put the new battery in it and fired it up for the first time. Plus it's got old fuel in it. But the good thing with this one is it does run. There was no, I didn't hear any funny noises, no knocking. It had good oil pressure. Even the alternator said it was putting out good bass to start with. But I'll get you down here with the camera here in a minute. We get this intake and stuff off. This thing's been leaking oil for a minute. And by a minute, I mean a long time. And so what I was doing, I told you I was going to spread it out. That's the kick down. So I just spread it out a little bit, and then when we put it back on, I'll just grab the channel locks and I'll squeeze it back together so it doesn't pop off the post that it rides on. But you don't want to start messing too much with the adjustments here. You might have problems, and then you'll have to do the procedure to reset the TV. I don't know if that's a TV cable or a kick down cable. I'm not sure on these what they call it, but it's best not to move it is what I'm telling you. Yeah. So this back valve cover where the PCV goes in, or where the tube from the throttle body goes into the valve cover, it's covered in oil. So I'm guessing it's part of the leak that it's having. Not a big deal, we can fix that. Oh, look at that. I forgot one of the bolts. Genius. That might be the reason it ain't coming off. If you don't have some of these tools, you should probably get some. They're really handy to have. The batteries seem to last quite a while. Yeah, just make your life a lot easier. And these are all the same length. Appear to be. Yep. Now when I put these back in, I'll probably put a little grease or something on them so they don't seize into that aluminum. Maybe I take a little touch of that anti-seize or something. Just be easy with the anti-seize. Pretty sure we got all the bolts out of it. There it is. What else is holding the air? Okay, I think the map sensor's got to come off. And we might be a little closer to the goal here. So just remember on these, the other 10mm there. Go easy on the bolts as much as you possibly can. And, you know, try not to pry too much on this or that because, again, these are quite old, and then aluminum gets, like you can see that bolt there, that's total corrosion. That's what made that one break off. So you could run in quite a bit of that on these engines. Just be careful, take your time. Use penetrating oil if you need to. Well, looks like I need to take those screws out. No idea what size that is.
small. We'll go small.
Over there. First try even. It might be time to go to Harbor Freight again. Running low. You buy Harbor Freight tools, I buy a lot of them. Are they good? They're questionable, but they work. You know, the good thing is if you lose them or break them, they're not that expensive to replace. I mean, I do have some Snap-on stuff and Mac and other things like that. For the most part, my everyday tools are always Pittsburgh tools. Or, you know, if I step up a little bit, I'll buy an Icon every now and again. They're fairly decent tools. This is where the EGR tube feeds the EGR, and they're notorious for rusting and breaking off here. This is probably where our massive air leak was, why it wouldn't idle correctly. Very oily and dirty. Yeah, we're gonna go ahead and make a block off plate for that. Take the tube off, and then I'll show you here with the camera where the EGR is. The good thing on these earlier OBD1 vehicles, like such as this one, they don't have an electronic sensor on the EGR, so it's not going to know if it's there or not. So that's a good thing. Okay, so that's your EGR right here, and you'll see the only connector to it is a vacuum line. So we'll just plug that. But that's the tube. See how clogged it is? Well, it's also broken off of the tab that mounts to the underside of that upper intake manifold. Probably where we were getting our leak from, our idle air leak. So you have an idle air control valve on this throttle body. It's right here. And that's designed to bleed air, let it idle correctly. It's your throttle position sensor here. With that leak being in the bottom of the intake, it was making that idle air control valve obsolete. That looks like we were getting all of our leaks from. I don't know if I need to tear it down any further than that. It doesn't look like the oil pan, or excuse me, the valve covers are actually leaking. They're just dirty. We will eliminate the EGR tube and block it off here on the exhaust manifold. Just get rid of all of that. I'll have to take that off, and more than likely the bolts will break, and then figure out how to make a plate and then get it back on there. I believe I did the same thing to my 86. It had the same issue. It was broke off, and this one's not only broke off, but it's completely clogged full of carbon. Fuel pressure regulator. What do we have going on here? Yeah, all those plastic lines seem to be in pretty good shape. I'll check them all before we put it back together. It really doesn't look like I need to tear it any further apart than this, which is good. Now after I get it all running and stuff, I'll probably some original gunk engine degreaser and spray this whole thing down, let it sit, let it run for a little while, and then power wash the crap out of it. I was driving my 86 to work one day. I was going up a hill, and all of a sudden I heard a pop. Something hit the back of the firewall, and it just, oh my, I lost all power. And I'm like, well, I'm just going to keep going. So I drove it, got it all the way to work. I got there, popped the hood, and the center of the spark plug, so I'll show you what I'm talking about here. The spark plug had rusted off, and the center of the porcelain had popped out, was still in the plug wire, but now I had one cylinder with an open hole. It ran like garbage, obviously, and that's when I had to pull the motor because it had rusted off and broke the threads in the spark plug, in the cylinder head where the spark plug screws in. I did that first because that could have changed what we were doing here with this video. With this, it's not really a revival. It's not really a rescue. It's kind of a get it running, fix all the little stuff on it type deal. That's where we're at. Next, I'm gonna pull off. I'll put this camera back up. We'll pull the cap and rotor off and the wires, get all that out of the way, and then figure out what we're gonna do here to get this EGR valve plugged off and out of the way. Don't tell Greta, she'll get mad.
How dare you!
No, I'm kidding, I don't really care what she thinks. Just keep it on the down low that we're gonna be running it without the restrictor plate. We'll have to make a plate for the underneath of that upper intake as well. Kind of block that off. I got a welder. You see it over there. It's a Vulcan. It works great. We have the tools. We have the technology. Little update here, and then I think I'm gonna go in for tonight. But I pulled the cap off, and we got some problems here. The entire distributor here to pick up, I guess you'd call that like a reluctor wheel, pickup wheel, is pretty bad. Plus, I broke the screw off, taking the cap off. I think I might have to pull the distributor. We'll see if we can't clean all this up and get it working great. Or tonight when I go in, I might just get online and see if I can find another distributor for this, because this one's pretty bad shape. But you can see the rotor, end of the rotor tip's gone. Let me look here in the cap. Oh, battery's about to dead. You look here in the cap. Phew, that's a lot. That's pretty bad shape. I think the distributor for pretty much any of these 2.8s is probably the same. I don't think this one's unique to a Fiero. I will look that up tonight and see if I can't get on eBay, or even if I could get like a newer style one from an MSD or something like that from Summit. I might just order a new one, because in my experience with these, if they're that rusted and bad, you're probably never going to make them work right again. Well, this thing ought to run like $1 million when it's put back together with all these issues that it had. I'm surprised it even ran, but it did. Call it for tonight. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, hit the notification bell. Help me try to grow this channel. This is not my primary job. I work full time and I fund all my own projects here. It'd be fun to do this full time. That takes you. Thanks again. Take care.